Um, hey Nancy, it's Sharpwing. I was sitting in a call with Duke and when I used to do Radio Molly, when Kiba was still around, when Ditzy was still around, two people that were very, very close friends of mine. And I remember Duke looked at that and went, "Wait, is that Stardust Rewind channel still around?" And I remember something about it, and that was that I was I was supposed to put this up in honor of what Radio Molly was, of what Stardust was, those last, the last time you were with us. And I know things really haven't changed much, but in a way they changed a lot when you vanished. It was hard for a lot of us. And there were even people that genuinely believed that you leaving was our fault. And I know you told us not to tell people the actual reason, and I won't. And I hope that somehow this message gets to you. I hope you're doing good with your life. I hope you're well. I know when you started doing it, you were already nearing retirement age, and you didn't want to continue doing it because it was making you tired and stressed, and you worried, and you didn't know if people would like what it was we would produce. There was even times you wouldn't show up to some of the streams, and you wanted us to do it solo with Gonzo. And I understand why you did that. It's because you knew that eventually you were going to leave. And I remember I was getting into a fight with someone on the Legion the other day, and there was somebody that had the nerve, the goddamn gall, to say that you left because I'd lost touch. That I lost touch with the world. I was the only goddamn person on that team that had touch with the world sometimes. And when it came to like progressive ideas and stupid things like that, I remember the argument that I gave is if you're afraid of images of Hitler with a handlebar mustache and buck teeth, and you think that's a symbol of hate and you think that's going to hurt people and scare people away, you really need to reevaluate your life. And that was the message that I constantly sent. I know it wasn't a message that always reverberated with staff, and I know it wasn't a message that always reverberated with you. But I know eventually you came to see the consequences of what it meant without rules or structure or understanding of why people's freedom to speak their mind was important. I know I'm probably saying this to a bunch of viewers, and why else? Why else would Sharpwing Live stream? Why for the first and only time to this channel that exists as a memoir, an homage, in memory of what was? And I know a lot of people have noticed the title. We can't go back to how things were, so let's rewind. Well, it's true. So much has changed, so much time has morphed, everything is different. Very different than I remember it. Faint, vivid glimpses and memories of what was flash by. And I can't help but sometimes feel upset that those things will never be again. Not at least if you tried, they would never be as they were. Why? Because you're not there. And I know you're not coming back. And I'm not asking you to come back. I just wish I knew what to do to make people happy. And then I realized something. You'll never get the old RM back. Even if I tried to placate to an audience and bring them back the old RM and I tried to do it on my own, it would never be the same. It's not you. It's not your personality. It's not your character. And at times, I had a hard time believing someone like you was real. But you were real because everyone else believed you were. You didn't even have to be a real human being on the other line. You were a symbol. You stood for something that meant a lot to a lot of people. And you meant something else to each and every single different person, and I hope you know that. And I know life can be stressful and hard, and what am I doing? A young guy preaching to an older woman. I wish things could go back to how they were sometimes. Sometimes I look at what we had. I actually look back at that old Cry of Fear stream we had with Dig Duke, and I sometimes wish, I wish I could talk to Vlad again. I wish I could talk to Kiba again. Sometimes I especially wish I could talk to you again. Tell you that I appreciated you as a friend. That I knew even in the toughest times, even if you didn't agree with me on everything I had to say, you had my back. The crew didn't constantly have to get along or have the same viewpoints or whatever. We just had to work towards one goal. And that was to entertain these people, to bring these people something they would enjoy. And I miss you. I think a lot of people do. Every day. I know a lot of people come back to me talking about RM. Oh, do you remember the good old days? Do you remember those days, Sharp? Do you remember those days? I remember them quite a lot. I remember them down to the most minute detail. I remember them when we were in private groups storyboarding story arcs and shit we came up with. I remember when Kiba was talking about Tales from Beyond the Microphone. Tales from Beyond the Mic, something like that. It was Kiba's thing. I remember when Kiba had a Tumblr blog to tell a story about our characters and build more character development on the side. And then I remember when we got so ambitious that we gave ourselves too much to multitask with. When we had a Tumblr, a Minds, a Gab, everything. We even tried to get ourselves on radio apps. We tried to get ourselves on people's phones, and at one point we took on too much. And we learned that lesson hard. Personally, I think it was all that stress and things that hit Kiba the hardest. Which is probably why he left. And I know he walked away. He says he walked away because he had a lot to do with life. He says he walked away because he had a job to worry about. He says he walked away because he had family. I know he walked away because he hated seeing his friends fight. I know he walked away because he hated seeing the conflict and the struggle we'd undergone. I know he walked away because at one point we genuinely lost sight of what it was we were trying to do. And I didn't say anything. I miss Kiba. I had a harsh falling out with Ditsy Dubs. And then we became friends again. And we still don't talk that. And that's my fault. But I miss her too. But I miss not being at odds with her. The fact that the last memories of that show was me cussing her out because of things that weren't her fault. Post the show. me falling down such a harsh, hard downward spiral because of all the things that had happened to me, that I started taking myself and the people around me for granted. That I started focusing, obsessing more over politics and fucking things like that than what truly mattered. You know, at one point I was bipartisan. I was laid back. I could look and think about the perspective of the emotional and the abstract and the people who dream versus the practical. And then I lost that. And for a long time, I lost who I was. You told me that, and I didn't listen to you. In a lot of ways, you were like the group mom. When you went away, the kids basically just threw a tantrum. And I couldn't pick up the pieces. Gonzo couldn't pick up the pieces. No one could. What was left was a shattered, fragile lamp that couldn't be glued back together. Some of the pieces of glass fell down the vent. We'd never find them. We couldn't. We couldn't rebuild what was. And despite all the bad, all the trouble, all those fleeting moments of negative emotion that would come and go, that's not what I remember the most. I don't look back at anything we did out of anger. I only look back at what we did that brought people and ourselves together. I only look back at the moments that we laughed at some of the funniest, most benign shit we'd ever said. We didn't know why we said it. We just knew it was on our mind and we spoke. And we made people laugh and we made people smile. We created so many bizarre and weird characters that had a constant continuity and flow with what we created. We'd practically obsessed over what we'd created like it was our child. And yet, we knew what we'd created would disembark. We knew it wouldn't last forever because it was based off of a fandom that was already slowly malfunctioning and dying on its own through very many incidences, controversies, and even the death of the show that it revolved around. So we moved on to Stardust. It was okay, but it didn't feel the same. And to this day, I still don't think it was because it was Pony. It was an attitude. It was a type of interaction and fun people had that had just been lost when we made that shift. Like, there wasn't the same emotion in the air. There was content brewing. And you could feel it. Every broadcast we did, you could feel people's unease. You could feel people's negative emotion. And I know, Nancy, you especially could feel it. You felt it the whole time. Which is why you were so uneasy. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry I couldn't do more. I couldn't do anything to fix what was broken. And I still can't. And I know it's impossible to bring back the past. It's impossible to rewind the clock and do everything right with the foresight that you now have because all those struggles and all that pain made who you are today. I took this project on so I could close a chapter in my life. So that I wouldn't look back at this with regret or want or pain. That I could look back at it as a positive thing. As something that meant more than just Pony. It was a time when a lot of people in our inner circle. We weren't sure what the future held. But we looked at the world with a naive view. And we thought that no matter what the future held, nothing could tear that team apart. But we got arrogant. We got foolish. We got short-sighted. I mean, I could name every word in the book to describe what went down. And it still wouldn't be the proper way to express it. It was fun while it lasted. It was. And I want to rewind and look at all those moments we had and smile. I don't want to be sad or upset or angry that something like that, no, that was lightning in a bottle. You can't repeat it. And if you tried to, it would be something all its own. It wouldn't be that thing. The people that interacted, absolutely everything. I enjoyed every second of it. Every weekend when it would roll around to us doing the podcast, I was excited to do it. I was ready to do it. I was happy to do it. Around the time of Stardust, I did it every once in a while. I interacted every once in a while. And then there were points where I just stopped showing up to streams. Because I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to feel the same way because I was depressed after everything that had happened in my personal life. I was upset. I didn't see a bright light at the end of the tunnel. And I couldn't make people understand that. That I'd lost a lot more than a relationship at that time. That a lot more had happened at that time. A lot more. And at the time, I didn't have the proper words to express. I don't want to get too personal because the way the internet is nowadays, they would try and use that emotional plight, that pain against you. They would try to say you're begging for pity views or whatever. I question how many people still come onto this channel to watch the old stream. Oh wait, they were unlisted. So why did I publicize the streams? There you go. There's the precise answer. So people could come here and have something to look at, have something to watch, have something to enjoy, that new people could still indulge in a dead project. And while they would feel maybe upset that people aren't making this thing anymore, they would still get to enjoy it. I didn't ask anybody's permission on the crew to do this. I just did it. They don't pay attention to this channel. They don't even know that it still exists. Or if they do know that it still exists, they don't care. And that's fine. More power to them. You can't recreate the past. You can reenact it. You can try to remember it as vividly as possible. But I think all people really wanted was to be able to go back, watch those old streams, and feel like we didn't attach a contempt or a hatred or an idea that we were trying to push the people that enjoyed that old stuff away. I wasn't. I enjoyed that old stuff too. I loved that old stuff with a passion. Sorry, this isn't really scripted. I'm just coming up with the words as I go. Most streams weren't really scripted, and as you can see, I'm not very good at doing streams solo. I don't have the words to express myself. I go off on tangents. I had a lot of fun. I want to be able to do something like that again. I know I can't do that again. But I want to feel that way, have that connection, that smile that I used to have. That spark in my eye that said, yes, I'm ready to do this. I'm ready to smile again, Jesus. I'm ready to move on with my life. And exactly what I said, not look back in anger. And I was very, very angry for the longest time. In fact, at points, I blamed myself for the way things fell apart. And you leaving, you repeatedly said it was not anyone's fault. It was just your time to go. And I still believe that. You wouldn't have left if it wasn't important. I know. And I remember when you handed this whole thing off to us and we tried to change it completely to Up All Night, you said, look, as long as you kids stick together, you've got this. You don't need me. At the time, I wasn't sure I believed that. And I was dealing with my own shit, and I didn't really value those words, and I didn't even realize you weren't just leaving the show. You left the internet. We'd never hear from you again. That this was the last time we'd interact. If I wasn't struggling with my own emotional pain, I'd have cried. if I wasn't already crying, if I wasn't already upset, if I wasn't already frustrated. And then the stuff that happened with my dog. I didn't take a moment to realize you were gone. So I'm sorry about that. So I guess this is my formal goodbye that I didn't give. I was too frustrated to talk to anyone. And that's my fault. Goodbye, Nancy. Goodbye, Radio Molly. Goodbye, Stardust. It was fun while it lasted. It won't ever be that again. We're still a team. We're still working together. We're still trying. And maybe you're right. Kiba's gone, Ditsy's gone, nothing's bringing them back. They don't want to do this thing anymore. You're definitely not coming back. Not because of anything we did, but because of a choice you made. I understand. Maybe you left, not just because you were old and tired, but because you needed something to bring us back together before you went. You could have left without saying anything. You had no emotional ties to the internet whatsoever. The whole reason you did what you did was because you loved doing it. And then life took hold and you couldn't really do that anymore. I guess one valuable lesson you wanted to teach people is if people don't prep for life, they don't get to do what they want when they're older. You were a symbol to a lot of people. And I realize now that's what people need. Someone to look up to, someone to admire. And at most, you were an admirable woman. I can say that. Without sounding too fucking SJW-y. You were most certainly the appropriate role model for this man. A strong female role model for a man like me. And in that fleeting moment, I felt like a kid again going, I want to be like you when I grow up. Maybe that's what people are trying to accomplish. And that maybe, I don't know, it's not an encouraging society that makes strong women. It's strong women that makes an encouraging society. And you were stronger than any of us. I admired you for that. I want you to know that. We can't go back to how things were. So let's rewind. Goodbye, Nancy.